When boxing legend Mike Tyson, the ferocious icon whose raw intensity still commands the spotlight, was forcibly ejected from the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live, Hollywood was left reeling. What began as a high-energy appearance to promote Tyson's latest venture, a gritty docuseries on his life, erupted into a blistering confrontation, exposing a side of Jimmy Kimmel that shatters his persona as late night's affable host. Kimmel's calculated jabs at Tyson's turbulent past pushed the former champion to a boiling point, transforming a talk show stage into a battlefield of raw emotion and unfiltered truth. This isn't just a celebrity spat. It's a stark unmasking of late-night television's hidden tensions. Stick around as we dive into the explosive details, and make sure to subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story reveals the real Jimmy Kimmel like never before. According to insiders, the clash was primed before Tyson even arrived at the studio. The former heavyweight champ, now a reflective but still volatile figure, showed up to discuss his docuseries, which delves into his rise, fall, and redemption. Mike was hyped but focused, a crew member recalled. He was cracking jokes with the staff, talking about his kids, but you could feel this intensity under it. Tyson's team had worked with producers to keep the segment centered on the series, and he spent the pre-show prep pacing, his energy a mix of charisma and unpredictability. But the mood shifted when Kimmel arrived, his demeanor sharp and dismissive. Sources say he was still stinging from recent guest confrontations, making him wary of Tyson's reputation. Jimmy was on edge, a production assistant disclosed. He was muttering about Mike being a loose cannon and how he'd keep him in check. This hostile undercurrent set the stage for a showdown that would stun the audience. When the show began, the studio buzzed with anticipation, the audience's cheers for Tyson's entrance, a mix of awe and excitement. Kimmel's introduction was tepid, barely masking his unease, and Tyson strode out, his compact frame radiating power, his eyes scanning the room. The contrast was immediate. Tyson, raw and magnetic, versus Kimmel, coiled and ready to provoke. Kimmel opened with a question about the docuseries but quickly veered into a sharp jab. "So, Mike, this series digs into your wildlife," he said, smirking. "All the fights, the scandals. Ever think you're just cashing in on the chaos?" The audience's laughter was sparse, and Tyson's eyes narrowed, his voice low but steady. "It ain't about cashing in, Jimmy," he said, his Brooklyn accent thick. "It's about owning my story. Good, bad, all of it. You wouldn't get that, would you?" The rebuke drew murmurs from the crowd, and Kimmel's smile tightened, his tone sharpening. "Oh, I get it," he shot back. "But, I mean, your life's been a roller coaster. Prison, ear-biting. Some say you're still that guy." "True?" The question was a landmine, and the audience tensed, sensing the shift to personal territory. Tyson leaned forward, his hands clenching, but his voice stayed calm. "I've been to hell and back, yeah," he said. "I've owned my mistakes, rebuilt my life. This series is about that, not your headlines. Why you digging, Jimmy?" The audience clapped, some cheering, but Kimmel scoffed, leaning closer. "Digging? I'm just asking what people want to know, Mike. You're a legend, but that temper's still there, right?" Tyson's jaw tightened, his eyes flashing, but he kept his cool. "Temper's there if you poke it," he said, his voice a low growl. "I came to talk my work, not your gossip. You want to keep poking?" Insiders later noted Kimmel seemed intent on rattling Tyson. He thought he could control Mike, make him the punchline, a stage manager confided. "Big mistake." Kimmel pressed on, his tone dripping with condescension. "Come on, Mike, you're known for chaos," he said. "That docu-series, some say it's just you rewriting history to look good. Care to comment?" The accusation was vicious, and the audience fell silent, Tyson's hands gripping the chair, his patience fraying as the segment teetered on the edge of explosion. The studio was a powder keg, the audience's uneasy silence amplifying the tension, as Kimmel's barbed accusation hung in the air. With no commercial break to diffuse the mounting clash, Kimmel's team banking on the raw energy for ratings, the confrontation surged forward, unscripted and volatile. Backstage, Tyson's team tensed, one manager muttering, "Jimmy's playing with fire." The crew, scattered around the set, exchanged nervous glances, a lighting tech whispering, "Mike's about to snap." Tyson, his eyes locked on Kimmel, sat rigid, his knuckles whitening on the chair, his calm facade barely holding. Kimmel, sensing he'd struck a nerve, leaned forward, his smirk masking unease. "All right, Mike, let's keep it real," he said, his tone laced with mockery. "You're selling this redemption story, but some say you're still the same wild guy. Unpredictable, maybe dangerous. Thoughts?" The audience gasped softly, and Tyson's jaw clenched, his voice low and deliberate. "Dangerous?" he said, his Brooklyn accent thick with edge. "I've fought harder battles than you'll ever know, Jimmy. Inside the ring, outside. In my head. I'm here talking truth. My series, my life. You keep swinging at ghosts." The rebuke drew cheers from the crowd, and Kimmel's smile faltered, his hands tapping the desk. "Ghosts? Come on, Mike," he shot back, his voice rising. "Your past isn't a ghost. It's a highlight reel. Prison, that ear thing. People wonder if you've really changed." Tyson leaned forward, his presence filling the stage, his voice a controlled growl. "I've changed because I had to," he said. "I've owned my screw-ups, rebuilt my family, my name. You? You're digging up old dirt 'cause you can't handle me now." The audience roared, some chanting, "Mike! Mike!" as Kimmel's face flushed, his control slipping. "Handle you?" he snapped, leaning closer. "I'm just asking what fans want to know. Like your docuseries. Some call it a PR stunt to clean your image. That true?" The jab was relentless, and Tyson's eyes blazed, his voice rising slightly. "PR stunt? I poured my soul into that, man. It's raw. It's me. You wouldn't know raw if it hit you." The audience erupted, some standing, and Kimmel's hands clenched, his tone turning defensive. "Raw. Okay, Mike, but let's talk." "That temper," he said, pointing. "You're intense, always have been. Ever worry you scare people even now?" Tyson's hands gripped the chair tighter, his voice booming. "Scare people? I scare folks who don't respect what I've been through," he said. "I came here to talk my work, my truth, and you're turning it into a circus. What's your deal, Jimmy?" The audience cheered louder, and Kimmel, now visibly rattled, tried to laugh it off, but it came out strained. "My deal? It's a comedy show, Mike. Relax." "Comedy ain't tearing a man down," Tyson fired back, his voice a thunderclap. "You're not funny. You're poking a bear 'cause you think you're safe behind that desk." The audience went wild, chanting, "Mike!" as Kimmel's face reddened, his control crumbling. "Poking a bear?" he shouted, standing now. "You're the one acting like you're still in the ring. Maybe if you weren't so touchy, we could have a real talk." Tyson stood too, his compact frame radiating menace, his voice steady but searing. "Real talk? I'm done, Jimmy. You want to fight? Step out of that suit. I came for my story, not your cheap shots." The audience roared, some in ovation, as Tyson turned to leave, his team rising to follow. Kimmel, panic flashing in, his eyes shouted over the noise, "Yeah, walk out, Mike. That's what you do when it gets tough, right?" Tyson paused, turning back slowly, his eyes like steel. "I don't walk from tough," he said, his voice calm but lethal. "I'm leaving a stage that's beneath me. You ain't a host. You're a clown who can't handle real." The words landed like a knockout, and Kimmel's face paled, his hands trembling. The producer, frantically waving off stage, signaled for a cut, but the audience's cheers drowned out the chaos as Tyson headed for the exit, leaving Kimmel stunned, the stage a wreckage of his own making. The studio was a cauldron of chaos. The audience's deafening chants of "Mike! Mike!" reverberating as Tyson strode toward the stage's edge, his deliberate exit a searing rebuke of Kimmel's collapse. With no commercial break to stem the firestorm, Kimmel's team still banking on the raw intensity for viral buzz, the confrontation barreled forward, unfiltered and explosive. Backstage, Tyson's team rallied behind him, one associate muttering, "Jimmy's done for." The crew, some openly cheering Tyson's stand, exchanged stunned glances, a grip whispering, "Mike just knocked him out without a punch." Kimmel, his face flushed and hands shaking, stood frozen, his eyes darting after Tyson. "You don't get to just leave, Mike," he shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. "This is my show." Tyson paused, turning slowly, his eyes locking onto Kimmel with a chilling intensity that hushed the audience. "Your show?" he growled, his voice low but devastating. "You turned it into a cage fight, Jimmy, and you lost. I came to talk my life, my work, and you swung at my soul. That ain't hosting. It's weak." The audience erupted, some standing, their cheers shaking the studio as Kimmel's jaw tightened, his control shattered. "Weak?" he snapped, stepping forward. "You're the one running, Mike. Can't handle a few hard questions about your past?" Tyson took a step back toward the desk, his compact frame radiating power. "Hard questions?" he said, his voice booming. "You ain't asking questions. You're throwing low blows, digging up my pain like it's your toy. I've faced real fights, Jimmy. Courts, demons, myself. You wouldn't last a round." The audience roared, chanting, "Mike!" as Kimmel's face reddened, his hands clenching. "Fights!" he shouted, his voice shrill. "You're still that guy, Mike, angry, out of control. That's why people question you." The accusation was vicious, and Tyson's eyes blazed, his voice a thunderclap. "Question me," he said, his tone searing. "I've answered for my life, rebuilt it brick by brick. You're the one out of control, tearing down a man's truth for laughs. You're disrespecting this audience, this crew, everyone who gave you this stage." The audience was on its feet, some chanting, "Mike!" as crew members offstage nodded, a PA's eyes wide with awe. Kimmel, now unhinged, laughed harshly, his voice echoing. "Disrespect? You're the one storming out like a diva. You can't take the heat, Tyson." Tyson stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "I take heat every day," he said, his voice steady but lethal. "What I won't take is you spitting on my story, my fight, my redemption. You're not a host. You're a bully who's scared of real." The audience roared, a tidal wave of cheers and gasps as Kimmel's face paled, his hands trembling. "Bully?" he sputtered, leaning forward. "This is my stage, Mike. You're just a washed-up fighter playing victim." The personal attack was desperate, and Tyson's patience snapped. "Washed up?" Tyson roared, his voice shaking the studio. "I'm standing here, still swinging, still building, while you hide behind jokes that ain't funny. You had a chance to talk something real, to lift people up. You chose to drag me down. That's your failure, Jimmy." The audience went wild, some in ovation, as Kimmel froze, his mouth open, but no retort coming. The producer, now rushing toward the stage, signaled frantically for a cut, but the cameras kept rolling, capturing Kimmel's stunned silence. Tyson turned to leave again, the audience's cheers deafening, but Kimmel, grasping for control, shouted, "Yeah, run, Mike! Back to your chaos!" Tyson paused, turning one last time, his eyes like molten steel. "I don't run," he said, his voice calm but deadly. "I'm walking away from a stage that's lost its heart. You ain't worth my fight, Jimmy. You're already down." The words landed like a final blow, and Kimmel slumped back, his face ashen. The audience roared as Tyson exited, his team in step, the producer's pleas drowned out by the crowd's chants. The stage a smoldering ruin of Kimmel's own making. The backstage corridor was a crucible of raw tension as Tyson stormed toward the exit, his powerful strides a silent condemnation of Kimmel's implosion. With no commercial break to douse the chaos, Kimmel's gamble on uninterrupted filming, now a catastrophic error, the clash's aftermath surged, unfiltered and seismic. Tyson's team moved in lockstep, their faces a mix of fury and triumph, one associate muttering, "Jimmy's finished." Crew members, some openly cheering Tyson's stand, lined the hallway, a sound tech whispering, "Mike just KO'd him," verbally. Kimmel, trailing behind, his face pale and shirt rumpled, shouted after Tyson, his voice a frantic blend of rage and desperation. "Mike, you can't just walk out," he yelled, his tie askew. "This is my show, my rules." Tyson kept moving, but Kimmel's plea forced a pause near the exit doors. Security, summoned by the panicked producer, appeared, their steps hesitant under Tyson's menacing glare. "Mr. Tyson, we need you to wait," the head guard said, his voice shaky. Tyson turned, his eyes boring into the guard with an intensity that silenced the corridor. "Wait for what?" he growled, his voice low and unyielding. "Your clown of a host turned this into a street fight. I'm done." The guard glanced at the producer, who'd rushed up, his face slick with sweat. "Mike, please, let's talk this out," the producer begged, but Tyson cut him off. "Talk? He threw punches at my life, my work. Ain't no talking that back." Kimmel pushed forward, his voice rising. "Mike, don't play the victim," he shouted, his tone shifting to a forced calm. "It's just TV. Things got heated. Come back, we'll fix it." Tyson turned fully, his compact frame radiating menace, his eyes blazing. "Heated?" he said, his voice gravelly and devastating. "You didn't heat things up, Jimmy. You tried to bury me, my story, my fight, just to look big. That's not TV. It's betrayal, to me, to your audience, to every crew member here." The crew, some nodding quietly, felt the weight of his words, a PA wiping her eyes in awe. Kimmel flinched, his hands trembling. "Betrayal?" he sputtered, his face reddening. "I've been doing this for decades. You think you can judge me because you're Mike Tyson?" Tyson stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "I ain't judging," he said, his voice steady but lethal. "I'm telling you the truth. You had a stage to share something real, to honor my work, these people watching. You chose to make it a brawl. That's not strength, it's shame." The hallway fell silent, crew members exchanging stunned looks as Kimmel's jaw worked soundlessly, no retort forthcoming. The producer, desperate to end the standoff, tried again. "Mike, please, this doesn't have to—" But Tyson held up a hand, silencing him. "It's done," he said. "Your audience saw who he is. So did you." With that, he turned and shoved through the exit doors, his team following, their footsteps echoing like a final bell. Kimmel, frozen, shouted after him, "Yeah, run, Mike. That's all you got." The taunt was hollow, and Tyson didn't look back, his silhouette vanishing into the night. A young crew member clutching a headset approached Tyson's manager as the doors closed. "Tell him he's a warrior," she said, her voice trembling. The manager nodded, and the corridor fell quiet. The fallout was cataclysmic. Clips of the confrontation flooded social media, racking up millions of views within hours. Kimmel Exposed and Tyson Truth trended globally as fans, fighters, and insiders dissected Kimmel's meltdown. Anonymous crew leaks detailed his backstage, rants and obsession with controlling guests, painting a portrait of a host undone by his own hubris. The network issued a vague statement about reviewing the segment, but whispers of sponsor backlash and executive panic swirled. Tyson, true to his warrior spirit, stayed silent, his team releasing a brief note. Mike stands by his story and appreciates the support. Fans and admirers rallied, hailing his raw defiance, with "pulling a Tyson" coined for confronting power with unfiltered truth. Kimmel's show bled viewers, with publicists pulling guests and ratings tanking. His once charmed persona now a liability. His social media apology, blaming a passionate exchange, was buried under comments praising Tyson's integrity and shredding Kimmel's deflection. The clash was a brutal reminder. In a world of facades, authenticity reigns, and real strength is standing for your truth, no matter the stage. The exit doors slammed shut behind Tyson, leaving the backstage corridor a smoldering ruin of Kimmel's shattered control. With no commercial break to quell the fallout, Kimmel's insistence on continuous filming now a fatal blunder, the clash's aftermath erupted, raw and irreversible. Tyson's team vanished into the night, their silence a testament to his unyielding stand, while crew members lingered, some exchanging awestruck nods, a stagehand muttering, "Mike just changed the game." Kimmel, slumped against a wall, his face ashen and hands trembling, muttered to himself, "He can't do this." The producer, trailing behind, his voice frantic, tried to rally him. "Jimmy, we've got to finish the show," he urged, but Kimmel's eyes were glazed, his defeat etched in every line. "Finish?" he whispered, his voice hollow. "It's over." Security, still hovering, dispersed as the producer signaled retreat, sensing the optics of further conflict would bury them. Kimmel, his voice rising with a mix of fury and despair, turned to the crew. "He's the one who flipped out," he shouted, his words unconvincing. "I was just asking questions." A few crew members looked away, while others, emboldened by Tyson's defiance, stared back, their silence a quiet indictment. A camera operator packing up whispered to a colleague, "Jimmy's mask is off. No fixing this." The producer, now pleading, tried to herd Kimmel back to the stage, but he stormed off to his dressing room, leaving the crew to limp through the show's end, the audience still buzzing with chants of, "Mike! Mike!" Outside, Tyson climbed into a waiting car, his team exchanging terse nods, already fielding calls about the viral storm brewing online. A young PA who'd slipped out approached Tyson's manager as the vehicle idled. "Tell him he spoke for the real ones," she said, her voice shaky with admiration. The manager gave a curt nod, and the car sped off, Tyson's silhouette a fleeting shadow against the city lights. Back inside, the studio was a graveyard, the audience's energy lingering as the stage manager rushed to cue a musical guest, the show staggering to a close under the weight of Kimmel's collapse. The fallout was apocalyptic. By morning, clips of the confrontation had exploded across social media, amassing tens of millions of views. Kimmel crashed and Tyson triumph trended worldwide as fans, athletes, and insiders dissected Kimmel's unraveling. Anonymous crew leaks flooded X, exposing his pre-show jabs at Tyson's past and his rattled demeanor post-clash, painting a portrait of a host undone by his own arrogance. One X post, liked thousands of times, summed it up. Kimmel thought he could bait Mike Tyson and got knocked out without a punch. The network, blindsided, issued a tepid statement about reviewing the incident, but rumors of sponsor pullouts and executive fury spread like wildfire. Tyson, ever the enigma, let the clip speak, his team releasing a single line. "Mike stands for his truth and thanks his supporters." Fans and fighters rallied, hailing his raw courage, with "Going Tyson" becoming slang for facing down power with unflinching honesty. Kimmel's show, meanwhile, bled out. Publicists blacklisted bookings, citing his hostile vibe, and ratings plummeted as viewers turned away, disillusioned by his unmasked spite. A scheduled guest, a rising comedian, canceled publicly, tweeting, "Not touching that stage after Kimmel's stunt." Tyson truth. Kimmel's social media apology, a weak nod to high emotions, drowned in a sea of comments praising Tyson's heart and shredding Kimmel's deflection. X posts captured the pulse. Mike Tyson stood tall. Kimmel fell flat. The clash, was a stark lesson. In a world of spin, raw truth cuts deepest, and real power lies in owning your story, no matter the cost. What do you think of this fiery showdown between Mike Tyson and Jimmy Kimmel? Was Kimmel's provocation unforgivable, or did Tyson's intensity tip the scales? Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more unfiltered Hollywood stories, and hit that notification bell to never miss a video. We'll see you in the next one.